Welcome. I want you to picture this for a second. We're in the ancient world of Aram at night. The air is just thick with these unseen forces. You can almost feel it. The winds are whispering over old clay tablets, stuff inscribed with symbols most people have forgotten. And you've got these ritual fires casting these long dancing shadows all over the place. Now, in this world, magic isn't some fantasy storybook stuff. It's a technology. It's a real potent force that's used to manipulate reality itself. And right at the center of our story tonight are two of its greatest masters ever, Laban and his grandson, Balaam. But this isn't just another tale about good versus evil. No. This is a deep dive into cosmic engineering, a massive clash between two fundamental operating systems, both vying for control of reality itself.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the central mystery here, because this is the whole thing. How in the world did these masters of the occult, guys who could seemingly bend nature to their will, just utterly fail? And we're not talking about them just trying to cause a little trouble. They were attempting to literally delete an entire lineage from existence. You had Laban targeting Jacob, the individual. Then the threat escalates with Balaam, who targets the entire nation of Israel. And yet, despite this full spectrum assault of what you could call spiritual malware, they failed. Completely. So the big question is, why? To get that answer, we've got to go back to the beginning, to the original hacker.
All right, so when we talk about Laban the Aramean, you have to get the image of Jacob's tricky father-in-law out of your head. That's just the surface story. The Zohar reveals him as something so much deeper. He's the patriarch of sorcery, the head of all practitioners of the dark arts. I want you to think of him as the source code for a huge, complex system of spiritual manipulation. Even his name, Laban, which means white, gives us a clue. It hints at his specific brand of corruption, this seemingly pure, white-hot energy, a kind of twisted kindness that he used to bind and control people. He wasn't just a sorcerer, he was the master node, the central server from which all these other occult systems would draw their power.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. The Zohar doesn't just, call him a sorcerer and leave it at that. It gets incredibly specific. It says he was a master of all 10 categories of the dark arts. And as you can see, these are not just different flavors of the same thing. We are talking about the whole shebang. From Kosem Kesamim, a diviner of divinations, to Menahesh, an enchanter who reads signs in nature, all the way to a Dorish El Hamatim, a necromancer who talks to the dead. Each one of these is a distinct system for hacking reality. And Laban had mastered the entire arsenal of the Sitra Achra, the other side. And he was trying to use this full-spectrum assault to just shatter Jacob's spiritual defenses.
And this right here, this quote brilliantly illustrates the whole point. Laban himself admits his methods. He doesn't say, I have a hunch or I feel like. No, he says nachashte. I have divined. I have used the system of nakash. This is the art of reading instinctual patterns in nature, of seeing the flow of fortune and energy so you can manipulate it. He is openly telling Jacob, my spiritual technology has been focused on analyzing you. He sees this divine blessing flowing through Jacob, and instead of respecting it, he wants to control it, to basically siphon it off for his own gain. This quote is Laban telling on himself, admitting his entire occult operation was centered on Jacob.
So, it all comes down to this number, 10. The Zohar connects the dots with this chilling precision. Laban tried to attack Jacob with all 10 systems of sorcery. And how do we see this play out in the physical world? Well, the text says he changed his wages 10 times. Each time he changed the deal wasn't just a bad business negotiation, no, it was the physical residue of a failed magical attack. 10 times Laban launched a spiritual assault from the dark side, and 10 times it was totally repelled. 10 times he tried to hack into Jacob's reality, and the source code of darkness just slammed into a divine firewall.
But of course, the threat didn't just end with Laban. In the world of spiritual warfare, when an attack fails, you don't just give up, you upgrade your weapons. So if Laban was the source code, then his grandson Balaam, well, he was the fully weaponized, deployable virus. The whole attack evolved. It got more potent, way more targeted, and the objective shifted from just personal control to full-on national annihilation. The Zohar doesn't frame Balaam as some new enemy. It frames him as the terrifying escalation and reincarnation of that original threat.
And this right here is the key mystical connection, the direct lineage of power. The concept of Gilgul, or the reincarnation of souls, is absolutely central to understanding this. The sources are explicit. The very soul of Laban the Aramean came back into the world in the body of Balaam. Now what does that mean? It means Balaam wasn't just taught by his grandfather. On a soul level, he was his grandfather. He inherited the entirety of Laban's dark knowledge, all 10 of those systems of sorcery. But now he had a new focus in this supercharged rage. It was the same essential code, just running on new hardware with a much, much more destructive mission.
So let's just break down this evolution of the attack. On one hand, you've got Laban, the source. His target was Jacob, the individual. His main method was nakash, divination, reading patterns, looking for a weakness. And his goal was purely selfish, control Jacob's blessing for his own personal gain. Then you have Balaam, the weapon. He scaled everything up to a national level. His target was the entire nation of Israel. His main method wasn't just reading reality, but actively manipulating it through powerful curses, that's kasem. And his ambition? Absolute, complete annihilation. It's really the difference between a hacker trying to steal your data versus a hacker trying to wipe out the entire internet.
Okay, so we've seen the attackers, we've seen their weapons, now we've got to pivot to the most important question of all. Why did they fail? What was the defense? And the answer isn't about some counterspell or, more powerful magic. The answer lies in the fundamental physics of the cosmos itself, the divine architecture. To get this, we need to understand the two opposing operating systems that basically govern all of existence.
You see, Kabbalah explains that reality is built on two parallel systems. On one side, you have the 10 holy Sephrod, these divine emanations that are the building blocks of all creation. And on the other side, you have the Kipod, which means shells. These are the forces of impurity and chaos. And they're not an independent creative force, they're parasitic. They just mimic the holy system to feed off of its energy. So Laban's power? That was a corrupted version of chesed, of loving kindness. His manipulative white energy looked like kindness, but it was all designed to control. Balaam's power? That was a fallen version of gevura, or strength, just raw, destructive red power with no truth to balance it. They were operating entirely within this impure, parasitic system.
And this brings us to the core of the defense. If Laban is corrupted kindness, and Balaam is corrupted strength, who is Jacob? Well, Jacob embodies the Sephidah of Tiferet. Tiferet means harmony, truth, and beauty. It's the central pillar in the system that perfectly balances the outgoing energy of Chesed and the restrictive energy of Gevurah. Because Jacob's spiritual DNA, and by extension all of Israel's, was rooted in this Tiferet, he was inherently immune to the wild, unbalanced extremes that Laban and Balaam were weaponizing. You see, you can't attack balance with imbalance. It's like trying to burn water with fire or freeze it with even more ice. The attack is just neutralized by the fundamental nature of the target.
Let's put this into modern terms. Here's the cosmic engineering analogy. Imagine Laban and Balaam are elite black hat hackers. They have developed the most sophisticated malware you can possibly imagine, and it's designed to exploit every single vulnerability in the operating system of chaos. So they launch their attack against Jacob and Israel. But here's the catch. Jacob and Israel aren't running that OS. They are running on a completely different platform, the operating system of holiness. And it's divinely encrypted from the ground up. The malware can't even recognize the target system. There are no shared protocols, no vulnerabilities it can latch onto. The attack code is looking for a way in, and it finds nothing. It's just fundamentally incompatible.
And this brings us to the main takeaway, the conclusion of it all. This epic spiritual battle reveals a really profound truth about what defense actually is. It's not about fighting fire with more fire. It's about being made of a substance that fire can't even burn. The ultimate shield, it turns out, is not an external weapon but an internal state of being.
And the ultimate irony, the final proof of this whole concept, comes from the mouth of the weapon himself. After failing again and again and again to curse Israel, Balaam is literally forced by a higher power to speak the truth. He looks out over the whole nation and he declares, "There is no Nakash in Jacob, no Kissam in Israel." The master of Kesem admits his art is totally useless here. And why? He gives the reason in the very next breath. The Lord his God is with him. That connection to the divine, that alignment with the architecture of holiness, is what renders all the technologies of the other side completely inert.
Okay, for all the gamers listening, think of it like this. Imagine you're the player, and the final boss is a sorcerer, just like Laban or Balaam, and this boss unleashes its entire arsenal on you. Shadow bolts, chaos spells, every curse in the book, everything. You see all these spectacular, terrifying attacks flying right at you, but you, the player, have an unbreakable divine shield active. And the attacks don't even bounce off, they just fizzle out on contact. They dissolve into absolutely nothing. That's exactly what was happening here. The attacks were real, the intent was deadly, but the target was just fundamentally invulnerable.
So, after all this, what does this ancient cosmic drama really mean for us, today? Well, it suggests that true strength, real security, isn't about building higher walls. It's about cultivating a completely different internal state. The ultimate defense isn't something you do, it's something you are. Which leads to the real question we have to ask ourselves. What operating system are you running?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.